So, well, in the few minutes we have left here, let's hit some other quarterback situations here. Man, I just can't believe that Cam might have to look at accepting a backup role somewhere to prove that his foot's fine or to prove something. Um, and obviously you know what it's like to be a Super Bowl winning, as opposed to he went to one Super Bowl quarterback just purely identified with one organization and then have to find a new way. I wonder what you think is going on in Cam's mind right now, Kurt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's fascinating. As you said, I was in a very similar situation. Won 2 MVPs, went to 2 Super Bowls. And then the perception was out there when the Rams released me that I was damaged goods, right? That I couldn't play. I couldn't be the same quarterback I was before. And that's a tough place to be because, as you know, in this business, perception is reality. What is out there and what people think, the shoulder, the foot, he can't be the same guy. People believe that. And so it becomes a show me. What have you done for me lately type league? And that's why I had to take that stint with the Giants, was just to try to prove to people, because it was really the only shot I could find of being a starting quarterback, knowing that they were drafting Eli, being a starting quarterback in hopes to prove in that one season, hey, I can still play this game and parlay that into another starting job. And so, you look at Cam, and I have to believe everybody's looking at it that way. And I think it's twofold with Cam as well, too, because not only the injuries and is he going to be healthy, but he was such a different type of quarterback, the running quarterback, the power quarterback, the ability to run in those short yardage situations, not necessarily a true drop back quarterback. And so I think the other facet of this team's looking and going, okay, if we do get Cam, and even if he's healthy, can he be that Cam Newton again? Or now is he more relegated to being a drop back passer? And if so, what kind of drop back pass, what kind of player will he be if he's more fit into that role? And so I think there's just a whole bunch of questions with that. But that being said, our league is in a good place quarterback wise. But this is Cam Newton too, and he is a special beast. And yeah, he might have to go to a place where it looks like they've got a guy as a starter, or he's going to have to compete for it. But that's what we do as competitors, right? That's what we do. Is, yeah, it's nice to have the job given to you, but there's something about going in and saying, hey, just give me a chance, and I will prove to you who I am and what I can be. And it sure looks like that's probably going to be Cam's situation. Outside of maybe, does New England take a shot to go that route, even though they've got a young guy and kind of the same thing? Jarrett's not ready yet. Let's bring in a Cam Newton and see what we get for a year. If we can get 2 or 3 years out of this guy, the special player he was, then we have that backup plan. I don't know. I'm fascinated, because Jameis too. Jameis is open now. Guy just threw for 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. I mean, he did a lot of good things last year. Look at, the Chargers. I mean, great situation with a lot of weapons. Is Tyrod the right guy to be able to utilize all those weapons, although he probably won't make the mistakes? But I'm fascinated by a couple of these situations and how it's going to play out. Andy Dalton is another guy that I'm a huge fan of. May not have the upside of some of these quarterbacks, but he does a lot of things really, really well. And in the right fit with a good team around him, he's definitely a playoff quarterback. He's shown us that too. So what route do they go with Andy Dalton? And there's only a handful of teams, a few teams out there that really need a quarterback, even from a competitive standpoint. That again, I'm fascinated. We've had a lot of moves in free agency, but I'm really fascinated what happens with these quarterbacks.
Well, I'm wondering with the signing of Hoyer in New England, I'm wondering if Belichick is sitting back and letting the market come to him. By that, I mean, let the draft happen. Let's see what happens in the draft, because I'm assuming the Chargers' move here is let's keep Tyrod Taylor here. He's a veteran who's been in the playoffs before. He did that with the Bills, although they were points challenged in that game against Jacksonville, to say the least. But maybe just sitting back and letting the market come to him by saying, let's see who takes the quarterback. The Chargers will take their quarterback. The Dolphins will take their quarterback. I think they're definitely going to take Tua, which means Josh Rosen might pop free. The Bengals will obviously take their quarterback. Won't be able to, one would think, keep Burrow and Dalton, although Dalton would be a great guy to have on your team, to have Burrow mentor by him. although I don't know how much he wants to play the role of Mr. Chips. I'm just wondering what Belichick is doing right there, because I think I know what the Chargers like. Hey, let's go, shoot our shot with Brady. That's the only way that would take us out of our plan of let's stick with Taylor, go draft somebody. But I'm wondering if that's what Belichick's plan is by hiring Hoyer right now to get in that meeting room with Stidham.
I would not be surprised in the least bit if they believe Stidham is the next guy.
Right.
I think that's really the question. And, you hear the good signs and what they saw. They truly believe he's the next guy, then I wouldn't be surprised at all, because you have to believe you can get one of these veteran guys. And if you can get 1 or 2 years out of them to play and be that stopgap, believing you've got your future, and if it happens sooner, it happens sooner, that would be the perfect mix. And as you said, these other teams that need one, Tyrod Taylor and the Chargers, that's probably not your long-term fix, right?
Right.
So what do they do? I can't imagine them go and sign Cam for a long-term deal. Jameis, I think is an interesting, because he's a young guy still, and he's done some really good things. Where does he end up? I think that's a key piece in this whole thing. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Chargers sitting in the right spot, going, hey man, maybe we can get up there and get Tua and have our guy for the future, and how that plays out. And because the fact that, like you said, there's 3 veterans. If we talk about those guys, Jameis, Cam, and Andy Dalton. If you're Bill Belichick, you're going, I can win with those guys. I mean, I had one of the best defenses in the league last year.
Right.
You give me one of those guys, we will be successful, and we still have our plan moving forward. So yeah, I would not be surprised by that in the least bit if he just kind of waited this out and see if even if these quarterbacks will sign before the draft. I mean, do you think that those quarterbacks will go off the board before the draft, or it will be, let's wait and see who we get if we're those other teams, and then we'll go get the veteran?
Well, maybe they won't, because as in the world we're living in right now, there's not going to be any off-season workouts. There's not going to be any places opening for business in April and handing off the playbook to people then, because of COVID-19. And I've said now, anybody that signs, like Philip, in my mind, Philip Rivers should have the playbook in his hand right now, because the only reason why you're holding a playbook off from players in March is usually, what the reason for this is to take the pressure off of the players, and from being made to feel like they're less than a good teammate because they're not studying all the time, or that they're being pressured by management to come in. There needs to be just this regular cooling off period, but now we're all being cooled off. I think they should give them the playbook right then and there, but I don't want to go down that wormhole. But so I don't think these guys will sign right now. Maybe they should sit back and wait. And in terms of Jameis, and then I just want to move on to one more quarterback situation with you. Peter King came on the show a couple weeks ago and threw the Steelers out there, that maybe Jameis signs with the Steelers. He's their quarterback of the future. If Ben isn't ready this year, and he looks like he's part of the Duck Dynasty cast, as we saw over the last couple of days, and that if he's not ready to go, maybe Jameis is the guy, since we saw them play musical chairs with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges wasn't working out, that maybe that might not be a bad spot for him to land in Pittsburgh.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, because these teams have to start thinking of that next plan. I mean, Ben, I think, has 2 more years on his contract. And with the injury, I mean, he just probably not going to play beyond that, but who knows? So, yeah, I mean, I think Jameis is fascinating, because Jameis has done so many good things in this league. And everybody just looks at him and goes, well, if we can just eliminate the interceptions. Now, we've seen plenty of guys that we've said that throughout their entire career, and they never get to that point. But that's why he's so intriguing, because he does so many good things. I mean, I watch all the film every week, and he makes more throws and more big-time decisions than most quarterbacks in this league. And it excites me every time I watch him or I talk to him about it. But it just, again, you got to at some point be able to delineate between what's a good attempt and what's a bad attempt. And he just hasn't figured that out yet. And, a team like the Steelers or somebody else, I think, has to be intrigued by that, especially if they don't have to pay him big dollars, right, and go, man, maybe we can be that guy. Maybe we can be that team. Maybe he can mature. Maybe he can work through it. But if we're not tied in for the long term, I think it's very intriguing for, one of these teams that knows their guy is probably moving closer to retirement,